What happens in Washington can hit your grocery bill in Barrhaven, your job in Montreal, and even how often American jets patrol Canadian skies. Plus, the Sens clean up nicely for a good cause, and Belleville hits the road on a heater. Quick Ottawa weather. Expect temperatures from -21 to -10 degrees Celsius. No snow or rain. Let's start with a fast-moving international story that could reshape North American diplomacy and Canada's economy. The White House has moved to further isolate Cuba, and that's rippling into Ottawa's relationships with both Mexico and the United States. President Donald Trump signed an executive order to slap tariffs on goods from countries that sell or supply oil to Cuba. That's put heavy pressure on Mexico, where President Claudia Sheinbaum has halted oil shipments to the island. She says it's a sovereign decision, not bowing to U.S. pressure. But Washington has been urging Mexico to cut ties even further. Coming after the U.S. intervention in Venezuela, Trump suggested Cuba's government is on the brink of collapse. Here's the Canada angle. Any overt American move to topple Cuba's leadership could place Ottawa in a tougher bind than even the Venezuela episode. Canada's maintained diplomatic ties with Havana for decades, balancing human rights concerns with engagement. In practical terms, new U.S. tariffs linked to Cuba could complicate continental trade flows we rely on, and they arrive while our manufacturers are already navigating other tariff threats. Which brings us to aerospace. The temperature just went up in Canada-U.S. aviation politics. President Trump has threatened to decertify Canadian-built Bombardier Global Express business jets in the U.S. and impose a 50% tariff on Canadian aircraft, unless Canada certifies 4 Gulfstream models here. He claims Canada's refusal to certify those jets is illegal and is blocking Gulfstream sales domestically. American aerospace unions are warning that tit-for-tat could seriously disrupt North American production lines and put thousands of jobs at risk on both sides of the border. For Ottawa listeners, this isn't an abstract fight. Aerospace procurement and policy are decided here, and our local tech and defense ecosystems feed into the national supply chain. Quebec's aerospace sector is the big economic engine. Bombardier alone supports tens of thousands of direct and indirect jobs, and Montreal felt it immediately. Bombardier's stock whipsawed on the tariff talk. Economists say these kinds of tariffs undercut the region's and North America's competitiveness, and they're showing up in slower manufacturing output and softer GDP growth. Canada is trying to diversify exports beyond the U.S., but that takes new markets, new logistics, and time, none of which solve next quarter's production schedules. Overlay this with Canada's F-35 purchase. We're slated to buy 88 jets, a key piece of modernizing NORAD. The U.S. ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, has hinted NORAD operations could shift if Ottawa doesn't follow through. Might need to field more aircraft and assume more presence in Canadian airspace. That's not an immediate cliff, but it's leverage in a moment when other aviation tensions are already flaring. Bottom line, trade disputes, certification fights, and defense planning are intersecting at once, and the decisions Ottawa takes will echo through jobs, security, and cross-border cooperation. From jets to greenhouses, the federal government just rolled out a tax change to help grow more veggies at home. Producers will be able to write off new greenhouse facilities more quickly. Growers say that should improve cash flow and unlock expansion, which could boost domestic production and resilience. But there's a catch, and it's a big one for prices. Operating costs, especially energy and labor, drive your grocery bill far more than construction costs. With natural gas and electricity prices uncertain and labor programs in flux, many operators are cautious about how fast to scale. More local produce doesn't automatically mean cheaper produce, at least in the short term. Still, if those operating costs stabilize, think smarter energy management, better scheduling, even AI-driven climate control inside greenhouses, this policy could help bend the curve on supply, if not prices, in the coming seasons. Speaking of what we pay at the store, CBC Marketplace has turned up widespread maple washing, products decked out in maple leaves and Canadian favorite tags that actually come from the U.S. Investigators say as many as a third of items on some shelves bear Canadian symbols, even when the product can't possibly be local. Orange juice, pineapple juice, you name it. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency identified a dozen cases where grocers used Canadian branding on imported foods. No fines were issued. Issues were resolved without penalties, which has consumers asking if that invites more of the same. Practically, if Buy Canadian matters to you, flip the package and look for the Made in Canada or product of line and the company's address. Patriotic graphics alone don't prove origin. Quick local safety notes. In Orleans, a car was driven straight into a storefront in a smash and grab. Ottawa police also arrested 2 people after a break-and-enter in Sandy Hill. No broader threat to public safety there, according to police. And in Carleton Place, the OPP seized several replica firearms during a cocaine trafficking investigation. In Vanier, emergency crews responded to a stabbing. Details are still emerging. If you're in those areas today, give first responders room to work and check police feeds for updates. To the rink, the Ottawa Senators swapped sweaters for suits at their annual Black, Red, and Gold Gala, raising money for community programs through the Sens Community Foundation. It's always a reminder that even in a tough season on the ice, the team's impact off the ice is real. Down the highway, the Belleville Senators, Ottawa's AHL affiliate, are on the road against the Cleveland Monsters. Belleville's coming in hot, with goaltender Leevi Meriläinen recently recording his 3rd shutout of the season. Roster moves matter here. Xavier Bourgault has been recalled to Ottawa, while Mads Søgaard is back with Belleville. Good news on the health front, too, with Al Lixel and Philippe Daoust among those returning from injuries to deepen the lineup. If Belleville keeps getting saves like that and bodies back, they're a tough out in the north. A national protest story with Ottawa implications. In Montreal, demonstrators, including members of Independent Jewish Voices of Canada, rallied outside a trade talk attended by Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand. They accused the federal government of hypocrisy, alleging Canada is using loopholes to move weapons to Israel via the United States, contrary to stated policies on arms exports to active conflict zones. These are allegations, and the government says it follows Canadian law and international commitments. Expect more scrutiny on export permits and end-use monitoring, something Ottawa insiders will be watching closely. Before we go, a great local listen. The CBC's This is Ottawa, hosted by Robin Bresnahan, dives into how high rents are squeezing local businesses and what an all-nighter looks like at the Elgin Street Diner. If you want a pulse check on the city, what it costs to keep doors open and lights on, it's worth your commute. Stepping back, a through line connects today's stories. Uncertainty. From tariffs to defense commitments, from greenhouse energy bills to grocery labels, the policies made in capitals, Ottawa, Washington, Mexico City, show up in everyday Ottawa life. We'll keep tracking how trade, climate costs, and even AI-driven efficiencies shape what you pay, where you work, and how we defend the continent we share. That's it for today. If you found this useful, follow and share the show. It helps us keep the focus local while keeping an eye on the bigger picture.